On my 60th birthday, my daughter dumped me in a nursing home and thought she'd won. But I had a secret that would change everything in just 3 days. Want to know what happened? Stay with me till the end. This twist will shock you. You know, birthdays after 50 are supposed to be about family, laughter, and maybe a little wine, not betrayal. I always imagined my 60th would be a cozy affair, maybe a backyard barbecue with my grandkids running around, a few close friends, and Emily, my only daughter, by my side. Instead, I found myself sitting in a nursing home, staring at a slice of dry, flavorless cake, the kind that tastes like it's been sitting out since the Reagan administration. The room was decorated with a single, half-deflated balloon and a happy birthday banner that looked like it had seen better days. I could hear the faint sound of a television playing Wheel of Fortune down the hall, and the smell of antiseptic hung in the air, sharp and cold. Emily stood in the doorway, her arms crossed, a look of impatience on her face. She was dressed in her usual business-casual attire, hair perfectly styled, makeup flawless. She looked every bit the successful woman she'd always wanted to be. But there was something else in her eyes that day, a coldness, a distance I hadn't seen before. She jingled my house keys in her hand, the sound sharp and final. "Well, Mom," she said, her voice clipped, "I hope you'll be comfortable here. They say the food's decent, and you'll have people your own age to talk to. I've got a lot on my plate, you know. Work, the kids, the house. I just can't do it all." I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to throw that sad little piece of cake at the wall and demand to know how we'd gotten here. How had the little girl I'd raised, the one who used to crawl into my bed after a nightmare, become this woman who could look me in the eye and leave me behind like an old piece of furniture? My heart ached in a way I can't quite describe, a deep, twisting pain that felt like it might never go away. I thought about all the birthdays we'd shared, all the times I'd stayed up late sewing Halloween costumes or baking cupcakes for her class. I thought about the sacrifices I'd made, the dreams I'd put on hold so she could chase hers. But instead of making a scene, I just smiled and waved. I watched as she turned on her heel and walked out, her heels clicking on the linoleum floor, her smirk lingering in the air long after she was gone. I could have said something. I could have begged her to stay, to reconsider, to remember all the good times. But I didn't, because I knew something she didn't. In 3 days, my late husband's trust fund would hit my account. $16 million. The number echoed in my mind like a secret weapon, a shield against the pain. I'd kept it quiet all these years, honoring my husband's wishes, never letting on to Emily just how much he'd left behind. She always assumed we were comfortable but not wealthy. She never asked, and I never told. As I sat there picking at the frosting with my fork, I wondered what she would do if she knew. Would she have acted differently? Would she have tried harder to keep me close, to care for me, to show me the love I so desperately wanted? Or would she have just found a way to get her hands on the money sooner? The questions swirled in my mind, heavy and unanswerable. The nursing home was a far cry from the life I'd known. The staff were kind enough, but busy, always rushing from one room to the next. My roommate, Edna, was a sweet woman with a sharp wit and a love for crossword puzzles, but she spent most of her time napping or watching old reruns of the Golden Girls. I tried to make the best of it, joining in on bingo night and chatting with the other residents, but my heart wasn't in it. I felt like a guest in someone else's life, waiting for something, anything, to change. That night, as I lay in the narrow bed, listening to the hum of the fluorescent lights and the distant sound of someone snoring, I thought about the choices we make as mothers. We give and give, hoping that one day our children will appreciate the sacrifices, the sleepless nights, the endless worry. But sometimes they don't. Sometimes they grow up and forget the hands that held them, the hearts that broke for them. It's a special kind of pain, one that only another mother can truly understand. But I wasn't beaten. Not yet. I had 3 days to wait, 3 days to plan. I thought about what I would do with the money, how I would rebuild my life on my own terms. Maybe I'd travel, see the places I'd only dreamed of. Maybe I'd buy a little house by the beach, fill it with laughter and friends. Or maybe, just maybe, I'd find a way to remind Emily that you can't treat people like disposable objects, not even your own mother. Would you have kept quiet, knowing what I knew? Or would you have let her have it right then and there, told her about the fortune, and watched her face crumble? I chose silence. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is patience. And as I drifted off to sleep, I felt a flicker of hope. My story wasn't over, not by a long shot. Let me tell you, those 3 days felt like 3 years. If you've ever been stuck somewhere you didn't want to be, you know exactly what I mean. The nursing home wasn't exactly the Ritz, unless the Ritz has started serving mystery meat in Jell-O cubes for dinner. The walls were painted a cheery yellow, but the lighting was so harsh it made everyone look like they'd just seen a ghost. My room was small, with a window that looked out over the parking lot, where I could see visitors coming and going, arms full of flowers and balloons. I watched them sometimes, wondering if anyone would come for me. But I knew better. Emily had made it clear. I was on my own. The first morning, I woke up to the sound of a nurse bustling in with a tray. "Good morning, Mrs. Carter. Time for breakfast." She set down a plate of what I think was supposed to be scrambled eggs, but looked more like yellow Play-Doh. I poked at it with my fork, then pushed it aside. "If you ever want to lose weight, this is the place." I made a mental note to ask for extra fruit next time, just to keep things interesting, but I kept my cool. I've always been the let's not make a fuss type. My mother used to say, "Don't air your dirty laundry in public," and I took that to heart. So I smiled, thanked the staff, and tried to make the best of it. I joined in on bingo night, even though I'd never played before. That's where I met Doris, a sassy, silver-haired firecracker with a laugh that could shake the walls. She wore bright red lipstick and told the best stories about her days as a Vegas showgirl. "Honey, you think this place is bad? Try sharing a dressing room with 6 dancers and a goat," she'd say, winking at me. Doris took me under her wing, introducing me to the other residents and making sure I never sat alone at lunch. We spent hours gossiping about the staff, the food, and the other residents. Doris had a sharp tongue and a soft heart, and she made those endless days a little brighter. She could tell I was holding something back, though. "You've got a secret, don't you?" she asked one afternoon as we sat in the garden watching the birds. I just smiled and shrugged. "Maybe I do," I said. "But some things are better left unsaid, at least for now." Meanwhile, I couldn't help but think about Emily. I pictured her in my house, feet up on the coffee table, sipping wine from my favorite glass. She was probably going through my things, deciding what to keep and what to toss. Maybe she'd found the box of old photos in the attic, or the letters I'd saved from her father. Did she even care? Or was she just relieved to finally be free of her old burden, as she'd called me? The thought stung, but I pushed it aside. I'd spent too many years worrying about what Emily thought of me. Now, I had bigger things to focus on. Every night, I lay in bed and counted down the hours. 3 days. That's all I had to wait. I thought about the money. $16 million, just sitting there, waiting for me. It felt surreal, like something out of a movie. I imagined all the things I could do. Travel the world, buy a little cottage by the sea, maybe even start a foundation for women like me. Women who'd given everything for their families, only to be cast aside when they were no longer needed. The possibilities were endless, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of hope. But I also felt something else. Anger. Not the hot, explosive kind, but a slow, simmering burn. I thought about all the times I'd put Emily first, all the sacrifices I'd made. I remembered the nights I'd stayed up late, sewing costumes for her school plays, or the weekends I'd spent driving her to soccer games and birthday parties. I'd always been there for her, no matter what. And now, when I needed her most, she'd tossed me aside like yesterday's news. It hurt, but it also made me stronger. I realized I didn't need her approval or her love to be happy. I just needed to take care of myself for once. Have you ever had to bite your tongue and wait for the perfect moment? It's not easy. Every time the phone rang, I wondered if it was Emily, calling to check on me, or maybe to gloat. But she never called, not once. I guess she thought she'd finally won, that she'd gotten rid of me for good. Little did she know, the tables were about to turn. On the second day, Doris and I snuck into the kitchen after hours and made ourselves peanut butter sandwiches. We sat in the common room, giggling like schoolgirls, and talked about what we'd do if we won the lottery. "I'd buy a pink Cadillac and drive to Graceland," Doris said, her eyes sparkling. "What about you?" I smiled, thinking of my secret. "I think I'd buy a little freedom," I said. Doris nodded, understanding more than I realized. By the third day, I was ready. I'd waited long enough. I'd let Emily show me who she really was, and now it was my turn. The money would be in my account by noon, and I had a plan. For the first time in years, I felt in control. I wasn't just waiting anymore, I was preparing. And as I looked out the window at the setting sun, I knew my life was about to change forever. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is patience. And oh, was it worth it? Day 3 dawned with a kind of electric anticipation I hadn't felt in years. I woke up before the sun, my heart thumping in my chest, and for once, it wasn't from anxiety or disappointment. It was excitement. I lay there in the quiet, listening to the soft snores of Edna, my roommate, and the distant clatter of breakfast trays being wheeled down the hall. Today was the day. I reached for my phone, hands trembling just a little, and logged into my bank account. There it was, $16 million, sitting there as if it had always belonged to me. I stared at the number for a long moment, letting it sink in. All those years of sacrifice, all the times I'd put myself last, and now, finally, I had something that was just mine. I didn't waste any time. I called my lawyer, Mr. Franklin, a kind man with a gentle voice and a sharp mind. He'd handled my husband's affairs for years, and he knew exactly what to do. It's time, I told him, my voice steady. Let's put the plan in motion. Within hours, Emily's credit cards were blocked, every last one of them. The house she thought was hers? Sold. I'd found a lovely couple who'd fallen in love with the place at first sight. They had 3 golden retrievers and dreams of filling the backyard with laughter and muddy paw prints. I hoped they liked dog hair because those couches would never be the same. I spent the morning with Doris, sipping weak coffee in the garden and watching the birds flit from branch to branch. I told her everything about the money, the plan, the house. She threw her head back and laughed, clapping her hands in delight. "Well, honey, you sure know how to make an exit," she said, her eyes twinkling. For the first time in a long time, I felt light, almost giddy. The weight I'd been carrying for years seemed to lift, replaced by a sense of freedom I hadn't known was possible. Then, just after lunch, my phone rang. I didn't even have to look at the caller ID to know who it was. Emily's voice exploded through the speaker, shrill and panicked. "Mom, my cards don't work. I tried to get gas and they declined me. What's going on? And why are there strangers at the house? They said they bought it. Mom, what did you do?" I could almost see her face, red with frustration, her perfectly manicured nails tapping furiously on the kitchen counter. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. The moment to say the perfect thing at the perfect time. "Oh, honey," I said, my voice calm and even. "I guess you'll have to figure things out on your own. Good luck." There was a stunned silence on the other end, followed by a string of half-formed protests and accusations. I let her rant, let her get it all out, and then I simply hung up. I set the phone down and closed my eyes, savoring the feeling. It was like exhaling after holding my breath for years. Have you ever wanted to say the perfect thing at the perfect time? Trust me, it feels amazing. All those years of biting my tongue, of swallowing my feelings, of letting Emily walk all over me, they were over. I was done being the doormat, the pushover, the "let's not make a fuss, Mom." I was finally standing up for myself, and it felt better than I ever could have imagined. The news spread through the nursing home like wildfire. Doris couldn't wait to tell everyone about my big score, and soon I was the talk of the lunchroom. People I'd barely spoken to before came up to congratulate me, to ask for advice, to share their own stories of family drama and betrayal. It was like I'd joined a secret club, a club of women who'd been underestimated, overlooked and underappreciated, but who'd found a way to take back their power. That afternoon, I sat in the garden, the sun warm on my face, and thought about what came next. I could do anything, go anywhere. The world felt wide open, full of possibilities. I thought about traveling, maybe a trip to Italy, or a cruise through the Caribbean. I thought about buying a little house by the beach, somewhere quiet and peaceful, where I could read and paint and listen to the waves. I thought about Doris, and how much I'd miss her if I left. Maybe I'd bring her along, after all. Everyone needs a partner in crime, but most of all, I thought about Emily. I wondered if she'd ever understand what she'd done, if she'd ever feel even a fraction of the pain she'd caused me. Maybe she would, maybe she wouldn't. But that was her journey, not mine. I'd spent too long worrying about her happiness, her approval, her love. Now it was time to focus on me. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. I'd done what I needed to do. I'd taken back my life, my dignity, my future. And for the first time in a long time, I was excited to see what tomorrow would bring. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't about getting even. It's about moving on, stronger and wiser than before. And oh, was it worth it? Now I'm living my best life, and I mean that in every sense of the word. If you'd told me a year ago that I'd be waking up to the sound of waves crashing outside my window, I would have laughed and told you to stop watching those retirement commercials. But here I am, in a beautiful condo by the beach, sunlight streaming in every morning, the salty breeze carrying away the last traces of bitterness from my old life. My days are filled with things I never thought I'd have time for again. Painting, reading, long walks on the sand, and yes, the occasional glass of wine on my balcony as the sun dips below the horizon. I even bought that cherry red convertible I always wanted. The one I used to point out in magazines and say, maybe someday. Well, someday finally arrived, and let me tell you, there's nothing quite like the feeling of wind in your hair and not a single care in the world. Doris, true to her word, visits every weekend. She's become the sister I never had, and our adventures are the stuff of legend around here. We've tried every seafood restaurant within a 20-mile radius, and we're working our way through the local art galleries and antique shops. Doris even convinced me to take a salsa dancing class, something I never would have dared to do before. We were terrible, of course, but we laughed until our sides hurt, and that's what really matters. Sometimes we just sit on the porch, sipping iced tea and watching the world go by, sharing stories about our pasts and dreams for the future. It's a kind of peace I never knew I needed. I've made new friends, too. There's a whole community of women here who, like me, have weathered storms and come out stronger on the other side. We have book clubs, movie nights, and the occasional impromptu karaoke session. I've learned that it's never too late to start over, to find your tribe, to rediscover the parts of yourself you thought were lost forever. I even started volunteering at the local animal shelter, helping to walk the dogs and organize adoption events. There's something healing about giving back, about being needed for something good and simple. And Emily? Well, let's just say she's learning a few life lessons the hard way. After the shock wore off, she tried calling, texting, even emailing me. Sometimes angry, sometimes pleading, sometimes just confused. At first, I ignored her. I needed space, and I needed her to understand that actions have consequences. Eventually, I agreed to meet her for coffee in a public place where I felt safe and in control. She looked different, tired, a little lost, not quite as put together as before. She apologized in her own way and asked if there was any way to fix things. I listened, but I didn't rush to forgive. I told her that trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild, and that I was finally putting myself first. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Sometimes I wonder if I should have forgiven and forgotten, swept everything under the rug for the sake of family. But then I remember all those lonely nights in the nursing home, the sting of betrayal, the way she looked at me like I was nothing more than a burden. I remember how good it felt to take back my power, to choose my own happiness for once. I don't wish Emily any harm. I hope she finds her own way, learns from her mistakes, and maybe, just maybe, becomes a better person because of it. But I also know that I can't live my life waiting for her to change. I have to live for me now. Sometimes the best revenge is living well and letting karma do the rest. I see it every day in the little things. The joy of a morning swim, the laughter of friends, the satisfaction of a day well spent. I see it in the way I carry myself, head held high, no longer weighed down by guilt or regret. I see it in Doris's smile, in the wagging tails of the shelter dogs, in the sunsets that paint the sky in colors I never knew existed. I see it in the freedom to say yes to new adventures and no to anything that doesn't serve me. Would you have done the same? Or would you have forgiven and forgotten, let the past stay in the past? I think every woman has to answer that question for herself. For me, the answer was clear. I chose to reclaim my life, to find joy in the everyday, to surround myself with people who lift me up instead of dragging me down. I chose to let go of anger, but not to forget the lessons I learned. I chose to believe that it's never too late to start over, to find happiness, to be the hero of your own story. So here's to new beginnings, to second chances, to the sweet taste of freedom. Here's to all the women who've been underestimated, overlooked, or cast aside. May you find your own path to happiness, whatever that looks like for you. And if you ever find yourself at a crossroads, wondering whether to forgive or to move on, remember this. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge is simply living your best life. If you enjoyed my story, don't forget to subscribe for more tales of resilience, reinvention, and a little bit of sass. Life after 50 is just getting started, and trust me, the best is yet to come.